Welcome to Publishing Power. My name is Joellen, and I am so excited today to have a couple of guests with us from ProWritingAid and Fictionary. Lisa from ProWritingAid, welcome.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here.
And Christina from Fictionary. Hello, hello.
Hi, Joellen. Excited to be here too. Thank you.
Me too. We are all three headed to the London Book Fair, and this is an exciting time. So I wanted to talk a little bit about all the high technology and the different things that are happening in the editing world, both for the editors, but also for all the authors out there, the new successful stories that are coming out because of the new technology that's being used to create better stories, to edit faster and cheaper, and all these fantastic things. So let's just start a little bit with story editing, which is, of course, a type of content editing. Christina, can you tell us a little bit about what's going on with Fictionary?
Yeah, so Fictionary is online software that's a creative editing tool for both writers and for editors. So we've got two products there. And what we're doing is we're helping a writer work on their own story, or we're helping editors do their job for writers by using natural language processing software that analyzes stories and provides really great visuals like a story arc and characters per scene, so that the person can actually see their story, and then they can work on the 38 Fictionary story elements, which are the key elements that you need in a story for a successful story.
And of course, FirstEditing is cooperating with Fictionary to become the first fully certified story coach editors out there. So we're very excited, and we promote this highly because we're finding that it really takes our editing level to a higher standard. That being said, there is a tool that we've been using for a long time called ProWritingAid. And Lisa, can you tell us a little bit about ProWritingAid and how that helps all of our authors with editing?
ProWritingAid is all about the technical elements of writing. So Christina's step in the editing journey is sort of looking at the overall, the arch, the characters, you know, the meat of the story, the ideas, how you're getting from the beginning to your resolution, that side of things. Once you've got all of those key pieces in place, then it's time to go really deep technical into the word-by-word analysis. And copy editing is about a lot more than just grammar. I mean, obviously you need to fix your grammar, you need to find all your spelling mistakes, but it's also about improving the readability and the strength of your words and the clarity, and making sure that your ideas aren't getting lost in your writing. Like, it's not too complicated, or you're not using words that people will have to stop and look up in a thesaurus in order to understand what you're talking about. So it's about making sure that your ideas are getting from your brain into your reader's brain in the clearest, simplest way possible. And then that sort of tightens things up so that when it goes over to a professional editor like Joellen here, you're able to give her something that's tighter, so she doesn't have to spend her time fixing simple errors. She can go deep into the actual meat and really give a polish to your writing.
Right, and I mean, it really helps us because they have a better editing, of course, but it also allows us to focus more on the language, their tone, their use of the words overall, their craft, rather than just their absolute skills. And that's very important to fine-tune and fix your craft more, and allow you to learn more from us, rather than just feel like you've handed your homework in and somebody has marked it up. So it's very interesting to see how that's working. What I think is really exciting is that this is all high-tech. You know, we're dealing with algorithms and natural words and how they're working. So I would love for you both, because we're still the human editors, as you guys like to refer to us, as opposed to the droids and the drones out there. We're the ones who get this after you, and it really is important to have these, you know, self-editing tools in advance, because they improve you, they improve your craft, they help you learn. And that's what the interesting thing is. There's a learning curve at the beginning of each of these tools and the courses that you can take, but they're more important that after you've got this learning, your writing develops and the next book goes faster and faster and faster. So, you know, Christina, I know that you are really quite smart in the background there. So can you tell us about how you built your template and the story arc? I mean, if we just start there, you can wow us.
The first thing, it's not easy. 10 years of research went into creating this. So we've been working on it for a long time, and I discovered through my writing that my true passion really is editing, which makes me odd, but I love the the process of working with a writer and making a story more powerful. And so I kind of got excited about that whole thing. So when I was first doing my novels, I needed a process. I had 3 in a series and I had an agent and was just getting my publisher, and I was using spreadsheets and things. And so long story short, we turned all of that into Fictionary, but in doing that, we went looking for leading technology on natural language processing. We did a bunch of research on what makes a commercially successful book. And I love to use one of my favorite examples is Twilight. And whether that's your genre or not, doesn't matter. When you look at Twilight as evaluated against the 38 fictionary story elements, she hits every single one of them. And so our research is based on, well, so if you look at the story arc, that's a great example. So we analyze the story and we give a recommended story arc based on the book that's imported. And we also give the story arc for that book. So the writer can see one compared to the other and what they need to do. And as they revise their story and move scenes around and add scenes and delete scenes, the story arc updates every time. And so the story arc grows with them, and they can see when they're done their revision what their story arc looks like. And they'll know, do they have their inciting incident in the right range? And of course, all of these are recommendations. There are stories that break these ranges and they're very successful, but you need to be very talented to do that. And so our goal is to show the writer, okay, this is where yours is sitting. Do you have a good reason for having it somewhere else? That's okay, but at least you're aware of it and thinking about it. And if you don't, perhaps it's better to move it a little earlier or a little later in the story, whatever the need be. And the true thing is to show the writer their story in a visual way so they can actually see it. And then it's much easier to revise the structure instead of looking at 80,000 words tucked into one document and you don't know where to start.
I think it's really amazing because there are a lot of writing tools out there that help you with your idea of your structure and how you want to put it and what you want to be creative with, but they're not really giving you the map of the different areas that you need to visit on this way. And it's, you know, our company is based out of Orlando, and so we have a lot of great things coming out of Orlando, and part of that is boy bands. And what we learned back in the 90s and the early 2000s is that there is a algorithm for a successful story or for a successful song. So when does that refrain come? What does it sound like? Is it the bad boy or the good boy making that, you know, there's different propositions that you put there. And with Fictionary, I'm discovering, you know, when we have the point of view and where's the conflict and where's the tension, where's the resolution, and how does it, you know, and not only just on this big scene, you can tell I've been doing my homework here, but on each scene, you know, not just the overall story, but in each scene. And does that leave us a cliffhanger? It's really urgent. And I think very important because there are just so many writers out there that if you want to shine out, you need to have something that really is snappy and catches your attention immediately, and then you're kind of addicted to it. You're still thinking about it. That cliffhanger kept you coming. You want to read the next. You want to read the next. So that's really great. And I get really excited about that. And what I find fascinating about this is that ProWritingAid actually functions within there. And I understand, you know, so tell us a little bit, because I know I love ProWritingAid and all of my editors use it. So Lisa, explain to us how that ties in and allows you to use Fictionary or any of the other different softwares that are out there, the different writing tools.
I mean, I think that Fictionary and ProWritingAid sort of developed in the same kind of way, in that, you know, you get to the end of your first draft and a lot of writers are just, it's hard to know what to do then, and you've got, you know, 70,000 words in front of you. And Fictionary lets you sort of look at your story as a whole and break it down into chunks and makes it sort of achievable. And I think ProWritingAid is sort of the same thing. Like my first manuscript that I ever wrote, my first draft, is still sort of sitting upstairs because I just never really went back to it. This was 10 years ago. Because it just seemed like too big a job, and I didn't really know where to begin, and I was already sort of bored of my own writing to go back and read it all again. So I think that the whole idea with ProWritingAid is that it helps give you a bit of direction. You know, when you put your writing in, it gives you a score in a bunch of different areas, and the editing process is broken down into different reports. You know, one looks at whether you've used too much repetition. Maybe you've used the same word, the same phrase, the same paragraph even too many times in your whole document. One of them looks at sentence length, so you can see whether or not you've got enough variation to make your writing interesting. It'll go back just to like basic style and readability things, and it makes it a lot more doable. And so the other problem that people have with their manuscripts is that they start on chapter 1 and they edit like crazy and they do everything and they shine it up and it's perfect, and then by chapter 2 they're a bit less into the whole process, and then by the time they get halfway through their novel and it ends up in their bedside table, which is sort of what happened to mine. And so the idea is, once you get on a roll with readability and style and that sort of thing, you can just, it seems quite doable. You sit down for an editing session and today I'm just gonna go through and sort out all my adverbs, because in your first draft everybody's a bit over reliant on adverbs instead of using the proper strong verbs that they should be using. And so once you're in that sort of mindset, you can just like smash through chapter after chapter and clean all of that up, and then the next day you have a different focus, and I think it makes the whole process less daunting in the same sort of way that Fictionary does.
And I think what's amazing about it is that, as you're going through each of these levels, it's helping you to keep it into chunks. Fictionary's got this big picture and you're doing that. But when you're doing the self-editing, it's helping you to focus on all those little things. But one of the creative things that many authors aren't thinking about, or rather they don't want to think about, is that after you write the book, you've got to launch it and you've got to promote it and market it. And one of the cool things about ProWritingAid is it's a tool that's, it's in your Chrome, it's on your Word, it can be on your WordPress. I mean, it's there, it's inside your computer following you everywhere, so that you are not making these silly mistakes, and it knows, it starts to learn you. So it knows when you're gonna, no, don't do that, and it's
in your emails, when you're pitching and submitting and all of that sort of thing. I mean, if you have a mistake in your email where you're pitching your book, I mean, it's not even, nobody's gonna even click your document open, are they? So yeah.
And I think that's why I get really excited, because these are tools that, yes, of course they're helping you with your story, but they extend so far beyond whatever that particular story is that you're focusing on. Because if I'm using Fictionary, I'm becoming a better, craftsman. I'm using a wordsmith. I'm using these tools and I start to understand. And it's really an MBA in writing, that you're or an MFA, sorry, that you're learning how to present this, and then you're able to carry those tools along with you secretly and type them out and learn and make a pitch that's proper. So for us for editors, when we get it, we're already throwing in all these tools and we're using them. This is not something that you need only at a beginner. Every author, every editor has a toolbox of reliable different things that they're using, and it can be knowledge, it can be experience, but beyond that, if you don't have that knowledge, if you don't have that experience, because that's why you go to the humans, then you're going into, what do I know about myself? What are my crutch words? Where am I repetition? What word do I use again and again and again? That's so boring. How, am I putting in scenes that are just fun for me? Or do they actually have a purpose in carrying the whole storyline along?
Yeah. When you're in the flow of writing, in the creative flow, you don't, I mean, everybody's process is different, but for me, like, I don't want to stop and think of, the exact right metaphor. So, I might just chuck in a cliche, or I might say there are two peas in a pod, which is immediately forgettable to anyone else. And then when I go back, that'll be flagged as a cliche. And so then I can put in something that will paint a more unique, fresh picture in their mind. I think lots of things, lots of vocabulary, you can't quite think of the right word, and so you just put it in, because it's all about momentum when you're just trying to get your story down. And then the self-edit is about polishing it and making sure that the words that you've chosen the right words to get your ideas across.
Exactly. And I love how they're following you, so they're helping you prepare for the pitch, your website, your author's website, any of your social media. I mean, we do that editing for people. I mean, it's not just books. It's anything you write in English. You need to have somebody look at it. I mean, even between the three of us, we're writing this book right now, right? And I'm going, oh, wow, I made this mistake, or well, look what I found here. And it's so important because you can't see it. So you always need a fresh person. And that kind of comes back to the editing process that we've talked about. You have your story edit, your high-end content edit. and you're using the copy edit for your self-editing before you come into the editors. But when we're doing that, either, we're doing it at a story coaching, where we're using the same tools that you have access to, and then we're going in and we're showing you inside your manuscript, okay, this is what needs to be fixed, and this is why, and this is, if we move this here, and subtract this, and we move these around, and your characters, I can't tell them apart because it's Lisa and Leanne, and I need to know their names are different. These little things you can't possibly see having written 70, 80,000, 100,000, 200,000 words, depending upon how verbose you are. You can't see them anymore. So then once we've done that first high-end edit and you've really got the structure, then you can go on, you get a new editor, we take you into the line editing, so we make sure that it's all perfectly done there. And then of course you're gonna do the proper human copy edit and move on to your formatting before you end up with proofreading. So it's really a long process, but this collaboration that we're doing here, I think is fascinating, and it's gonna be exciting in London to discuss how, it's not, you're not alone, and you can have experts literally just inside your computer hiding, just telling you what to do. And then when you're ready to go public, you don't have to move anything, you don't have to do anything else, you just open up a little key and whoop, here we are. The same as if you're not aware, in ProWritingAid now, when you want a human editor, there's a little button there, and boom, here we are, we can help you. So it all goes through, and then, then we just move on to the publishing. So that's very exciting. So we'll be, Christina, you have been organizing our presentation at London Book Fair. So we'll be in the tech area. Can you just give everyone a little bit of information there?
So we're on the Thursday in the tech area, and the three of us will be focusing on our end-to-end process on how the technology is actually helping a writer get through from their first draft to a published novel. So we're going to cover all of that. And one thing I want to highlight there is something you touched on a little bit earlier, in that going through this entire process of doing your own work and then working with a professional editor, the value that it gives to the writer is by going through their own process and using Fictionary and using ProWritingAid. Both of those tools are structured that it's also a learning tool. It's not just an editing tool. So the information behind what you're doing is there. And the advantage that gives a writer is when they go to a professional editor and the editor gives them feedback, they understand it and they can use it and they know how to apply it in a very specific way, as opposed to getting feedback from an editor, but you don't really know what the terms are or why they're saying, for example, the point of view is important, or why an entry hook is important, or why you shouldn't be using too many adverbs, or whatever it is. The writer then has that knowledge. So it means they'll get way more value from a professional editor because they understand what makes a powerful story and what makes powerful writing. And that is really what we're going to be talking about in our slot at the tech booth.
That's awesome. I really love it because it is something that with ProWritingAid and with Fictionary, that when I'm editing myself, because, working is different from writing. And when you're looking at that, you have to keep up, and you do get tired. Everyone gets tired. We're humans. We're not droids. We cannot perform at this level all the time. So that when we have somebody, saying, okay, you have to, you've gone into passive voice again. And that's what I constantly get from ProWritingAid, especially my emails. And then it'll also tell me, you're not being friendly. I'm like, oh, I'm just trying to get stuff done, Those are more exclamation marks, more, oh, hello, how was your day? But these are important for me, not only in my writing, but in my, again, becoming an author is a mindset. It is a business. It is something that you have to approach not only from your again, not just your skills and your crafts, but, are your ability to take yourself out there and to be professional wherever you meet them, online, in person, at the publishing. Hopefully everyone will be there getting their contracts, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So I really love how these close in. I think it's great. Was there anything else we wanted to cover to let them know about London Book Fair, about how we're working together and how it functions?
Our spot, we're doing our presentation in the tech zone, but our actual spot is going to be in Author HQ. So all three of us will be hanging out there for the full book fair. So come and see us there. And there's a bunch of other really great services and groups that are great for authors. So if you are one of the ones that's lucky enough to have your 5 minutes with Random House or one of those big companies, go see them and then come by and see us afterwards.
And we do have an ebook that's coming out that will be available for all of everybody who is interested in how does editing work, what is editing, basically the journey from the very beginning of writing your story and getting it structurally and developmentally sound, to moving on down to your self-editing, and then moving on to your line edits before you put it out there for peer review. So all of that will be outlined in a nice book that we'll have available for people to get their hands on, so that if we don't have all the time at the London Book Fair, we'll be around helping you in the background yet more. Well, thank you for coming in today, ladies. It's so great. We're covering 3 different countries. We have Canada, the US, and Britain covered here. So we're trying to hit all those major US speaking. We need to get somebody from Australia in here. And then we'll come really down south, you know, could be New Zealand. Thank you so much for coming today. Thank you for being here. Again, it's Christina Stanley from Fictionary and Lisa Lepke from ProWritingAid. We appreciate you coming today. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Joellen.
Thanks, Rowan.